Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I come in here every Wednesday. Okay. Whoo, if you saw the title of this Facebook Live, should I end my marriage? So I want to first, before I talk about that, talk about something else. That is, I changed the name of this group. So, as I grow, I get more and more clear about the message that I'm here to share, about the work that I'm here to do. And it really has always been for me about full self-expression. Full self-expression. That's a really big topic. Like when I say full self-expression, I mean all areas, levels, layers, iterations of my life. I show up fully. I'm fully expressed in my marriage. I'm fully expressed with my body, with the work that I do, with my finances. Every aspect of my life is fully and authentically expressed. And we just don't, it's just not common. This is just not what we do. So I decided to change the name of this group from the Liberated Event to the Fully Expressed Woman because that really is what I stand for. I it is in my bones to do this work for women, to be the catalyst for their own, what I call bold and audacious self expression. And that just is you being you, you showing up fully in all ways in your life. It doesn't have to mean that you, like I say this often, it doesn't have to mean that you do a Facebook Live and that you have a platform, and it could be in your marriage, it could be in your relationships, it could be with your kids, it could be with yourself. I would say that's the most important relationship that we have, and yet we see ourselves in through our relationships. So want to talk about the topic of this Facebook Live, which I chose to write, Should I End My Marriage? I want to give you some history here. When the lockdown happened and everything shut down, I became fully aware that, first of all, I welcomed it. I welcomed the shutdown. I welcomed the coming in. I welcomed the end, or the pause of the push and the drive and the go and the always the next thing. And I'm still grappling with that in a lot of ways. But what ended up happening for me, and I'm just, my biggest opportunity for growth is when I share myself fully and authentically. What ended up happening was I saw all the places in my family, in my marriage, in my home life that for me weren't working. Like looking around and being like, wow, I really don't feel connected to my husband, or my kid, we're all just kind of like doing our own thing, and there's not a whole lot of coming together. There's a whole lot of screen time going on with everyone in the house. There's disconnection that I could see. And so it brought things to the surface. It brought things to the surface. And that's a good thing. There are always things for us to deal with in our relationships, should we choose to. Should we choose to. And I only say this because our relationships that we have out in the world with other people, I believe, are mirrors of ourselves. They're reflections of parts of ourselves. They're our hopes, our wishes, and our dreams in physical form. And they're also to keep being frank, to keep being honest. They're also areas to look at around where we've decided, consciously or unconsciously, to abide by certain sets of rules. And, as someone who's been in the personal transformation and leadership space for a very long time, it's always about What are you creating? When we wake up to the fact that we are co-creators of our lives, that we're responsible for all of it, that all of our complaints are really like this kind of victim mentality of, oh, it's, this is whatever the complaint is. If I have a complaint about my husband, I am fully aware that it is not about him, that it's not about him. And so we started down this journey of getting reconnected, and we started doing some work together, and that was a really, really great start. And it never ends. And here's what I wanted to say about this question: should I end my marriage? The reason I say should I end my marriage is because I have realized, I've pulled to the surface a lot of the rules that I have consciously or unconsciously been playing by. Marriage is one of them. Marriage is a construct and a structure and a system that two people can engage in with each other. And I know I came to this party with all kinds of expectations, ideas, fantasies about what it was going to look like to be married. And as I have been in this space of introspection and self-reflection and diving within, going within, it has brought some things to the surface. And those things they may be difficult to look at, they may be difficult to consider or ponder or deal with. And usually we don't. We don't, as human beings, want to take the path of most resistance. What I mean is, we don't want to take the difficult path. We don't want to take the path of like, oh, I gotta unearth some stuff here, or I gotta dig into conversations that we had at the beginning of our relationship, or conversations that I had with other men about what it looks like to be in a relationship. What does it look like to be committed? What does it look like to raise children together? I don't know, because I've never done it before. So every time we embark on something new, like being married or having children or buying a house or doing the next thing, whatever the next thing is, and we've never done it before, we can look at people who have done it before and do it the way they did it, which really is how I believe most young people come into relationships. Well, I'm going to do it consciously or unconsciously the way I saw it being modeled in my upbringing in my family. And that is how we perpetuate the bullshit. This is how we perpetuate the roles and rules and norms. And then you get in it and you're like, oh, is this, listen, I'm not saying, it's been, my entire marriage. I'm not saying that at all. But you get in it, and of course, the thought of something, the anticipation or the expectation of something is usually based on something we've seen in the past. And it's usually an expectation that may or may not be the right one to the right one to, not the right one, not like, sorry, Carrie, that's hysterical. I'm in the ew. Yeah. Yep. Yes. So thank you for sharing that, because there is this almost like, all right, I'll share a story. This is a story of when my first daughter was born. And, for those of you who have children, or not, you may have had expectations of what it was going to be like to get pregnant, to be pregnant, to go through childbirth and labor, and to have the child, and then to be a parent, right? There's these things that we think this is how it's going to be, and this is how we're going to feel. I remember so powerfully and so vividly looking down at this little tiny baby who needed me all the time. on my boob, quite literally. My job was to make sure this baby didn't die. Like, oh my gosh. And I realized in that moment that this other human being was their life depended on me and my husband. But their life depended on me. My life as I knew it was over. The life before that child came into the world was over, and I now had this new life that I didn't know what to expect in it, but I knew that in this moment, well, what I'm seeing and experiencing is this kid needs me all the time. This is a kind of like this high anticipation kind of experience. Like, holy shit, I'm responsible for another human being. And in that moment, I started to mourn. I started to mourn because I was like, shit, nobody tells you. Nobody tells you that you're going to have at some point a realization that the life that you knew prior to the decision that you made and the experience that you're having in this moment right now, that life is gone. It's over. It's done. Not that it will never be again, but right now, my 4-hour workouts or my 3-hour Starbucks, coffee house jaunts, were not going to happen anytime soon. And I mourned. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily postpartum depression. It was a conscious mourning of the life that I knew was no longer. And it's kind of like that with a lot of things in life that we've never done before. I'm speaking about marriage. So you do the things. You anticipate the proposal, you anticipate the ring, you anticipate the wedding and the colors and all of these things that it's this kind of like this energy of looking forward to something. And then you're in it. And then you're like, oh, well, they say the honeymoon's over. The honeymoon's over just means like the newness has faded. And then you add kids to the marriage. And then that just takes on its own holy shitness, for lack of a better word. It takes on its own, like, no one told me it was going to be like this. It's fucking hard. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, who am I? But it's not all of a sudden. It's not one day. It's a gradual thing that happens. However, these monumental big things like marriage and then having a child and then these big events, we don't really give ourselves time to acclimate. We don't really give ourselves time to say, how do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? What do I want this experience to be like? That's a conscious question. Like, here I am going back to my original example of like COVID, lockdown. I'm in my house with my husband and my kids, and I start to see the cracks in our relationship. And so I say something because that's just the nature of who I am. I don't step over cracks. I look at them and I'm like, fuck, that's a crack. That might get bigger. I'm going to deal with that. That's the hard stuff, is to just go, to say the thing that you're most afraid to say is probably, I believe, one of the hardest things that human beings can do, because we have the choice. We don't have to say anything. It's like, I cannot say anything and not rock the boat. I can say something, and then who the hell knows what's going to happen after that. Like, it could destroy everything. I could lose everything. He could get mad and leave. Whatever. All of the what ifs. And I've done enough pointing out the cracks in my own life that I know, okay, well, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die by opening my mouth. But I may slowly die, day in and day out and day in and day out, if I don't say anything. So I chose to rename this group the Fully Expressed Woman, because that is my fucking stand. Like, I fight for that in my relationship. I fight for that with my children. I fight for that with my clients. I fight for that. And so so that's why I changed the name, because this really is what we get to do to heal. And I want to just take this one step further. So here I am in this soup of really looking at my relationship. And for those of you who've seen some of my more recent Facebook Lives, It was I realizing that this chronic pain that I have in my body, I'm learning that there is a connection between repressed emotions, repressed anger, and physical dis-ease. So autoimmune disease, a positive autoimmune diagnosis, joint pain, back pain, hip pain, and I've been dealing with it since my children were born. I've been dealing with it, and I'm pretty well expressed. And so it surprised me that I was like, holy shit, could this be it? Could I have something that's repressed? So guess what I've been doing over the last few weeks is digging in to the uglies. There's so many uglies. Oh my gosh. There's so many uglies. The judgmental part of me, the critical part of me, the never good enough part of me, the wish I was with someone else part of me, that this can't be all there is part of me. Like when I can admit it first to myself, when I can admit it, when I can actually continue to get to the core, the root, the center of what it is that's causing me discontent, or what it is that's causing me disconnection, or a lack of satisfaction, a lack of vitality. When I can really look at what could be going on under the surface, and even under that surface, like really digging in, I see that there's ugliness, but the ugliness isn't necessarily the truth. But one of the things that came through as I was journaling, so I'm taking on this journaling every day as this process of getting to my repressed emotions. And my journaling has been almost exclusively about my husband for days on end, nitpicking and complaining and all the shit that I just keep in, and I try to like work through myself, and I do a lot. Like not everything has to be expressed, because the things that are coming up aren't necessarily, probably, I'm going to just go on, they're probably not really about him. They started a long time ago. They started when I formed my relationship with my father, and I saw the first man in my life do and say and be and act the way that I believed and learned a man should be. I learned how a man should be, how a father should be, how a husband should be by watching my dad. And then that relationship, I was severed from that relationship at 9. So I'm rectifying so many of these things from my own childhood. And I've been doing this forever. There's this part of me that's so frustrated, like, where's the bottom of this well? The bottom of the well is actually love. The bottom of the well is actually human connection. The bottom of the well is intimacy. But I have to get through all of the decisions that I made through my life on how to protect my heart. And as I'm doing this journaling, and for those of you who've seen a few of my lives recently, I've talked about rage, I've talked about suppressed emotion. I have discovered that not only is my husband a representation of my dad and my older brother and, husband, he plays husband role, he plays partner role, he plays father of my children role. I discovered that he also plays every man on the planet's role. Like I discovered last week that I don't feel safe in the world. As a woman, walking down the street, I don't feel safe. I feel safe in my neighborhood because I live in a good neighborhood. But if a man were to be walking down the street, I don't feel safe. And I can guarantee that there are women watching this that are like, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course is our normal. Well, yeah, of course I don't feel safe. Yeah, of course I don't feel safe is our fucking normal. I say that's not all right. And I say that gets to change. Now, whether that changes in my lifetime or not, I don't know. I don't know what the outcome will be. But the work that I get to do on me is not operating my life from a place of I don't feel safe. Because I don't feel safe manifests in my marriage. It shows up in my marriage. I am looking at him to be my protector, to be my savior, my hero, my father. Like, this is just like what I've discovered. And I look out in the world, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, because this isn't necessarily the truth. I'm telling you what I am what I've been discovering in that voice that's like the fear voice or the I don't feel safe voice. I look out at the world and I think men have been in power for the last at least 2,000 years. And look at what has occurred. And I'm not saying that like when women were revered as goddesses, that there wasn't violence and war. I'm not saying any of that. But I'm just saying we have prioritized. We have prioritized greed. We have prioritized consumption. We have prioritized oppression of other groups of people. We've prioritized the consumption of natural resources, the even consumerism, like, more, and we have to consume, right? And I'm not trying to have a political conversation. I'm just saying these are some of the realizations that I had as I'm going into this journey of looking looking into where I'm feeling unsafe and where I feel threatened is with men. Now, my husband gets that. Not consciously, but when I pull it up, I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, I expect so much from him because I feel so unsafe in the world. So I realize that I am really pissed off at men. I don't even want to say that. Like, I'm blaming patriarchy for my feeling of unsafety. For me feeling unsafe, I am blaming the structures and the hierarchies of patriarchy, the systems and rules and doctrines that put men at the top, put men before women, put white men before everyone else. And I'm pissed about it. And me being pissed about it doesn't justify me going out and picking up a gun and shooting men. Like, don't go there, because I'm not going there. What I'm saying is I'm realizing and I'm feeling and I'm experiencing all of these emotions that I have, and why I'm pissed and enraged and just fucking livid is I see the destruction that's been happening for so long, and I see how unsafe I feel out in the world. I was walking the other day, and I know you guys, if you're listening and you can relate to this, just be like, yep, I'm walking down the street, and there's a man who kind of was like, he was big, he was tall, he had like a really long like white beard and tats, but he was old. It was a white beard because he was older. And I was like, oh, maybe he's a cool biker hippie guy. Like, that doesn't even make sense. But like, I assessed in that moment, do I feel safe right now? Like, in a split second, do I feel safe? Do I have to move over? Do I have to keep my eyes out? And I'm wearing headphones. I'm like, is this really safe? Like, so I'm watching and looking him up and down. And I looked in his eyes and I smiled at him and he smiled back. But like, how many of us feel so unsafe in the world so often? And it's that level of unsafety, like that level of threat that we feel, that causes us to lash out. It causes us to break down. It causes us to, and I'm not saying cause, but like, this is why I shrink. This is why I, look to my husband to be like, you have to be absolutely everything. And my husband, let me just tell you this. My husband, the people that know my husband, and there are some of you in here, he's a remarkable human. Like, he's a remarkable human being. He's not aggressive. He's not violent. None of that. But it's me, and it's what I am bringing into our marriage, our relationship, and into the world. So I say that because I intend for this group to be a place where we don't come to complain. I'm going to own all of my complaints as I got to work through some shit. I have shit to work through. And guess what? We all do. We all have shit to work through. I intend to have this community, this private community, be a place where we as women, and I'm honestly going to go through and make sure that there are no men in this group. It's just not, this just gets to be a place where women come in who feel like they're not fully, like there's something that they want to do, say, create, work through, and they don't know how, and they want a safe place to do it. So again, and I'm going to create the rules for the group. There's no man, like I'm fully aware that my man bashing, my fear of men is more to do with the structures that have been in place than the actual people. So this is not about blaming people. This is not about any of it. And if you're getting that from me, what I would really request that you do is you either private message me or you post in the comments, no, I'm actually getting that you are really blaming men. And I will look at it. I promise you, I am so committed to walking the talk, and I do it. This is me this is me walking my talk and sharing it with you. So the reason I named this Facebook Live, Should I End My Marriage, is because I am looking at the construct of marriage and figuring out which parts I agree with and which parts I would like to rewrite. So you may notice that I have this white silicone band on my ring finger. I have not been wearing my wedding ring for months. It's uncomfortable. It's tight. When I work out and do yoga, I can't. It's very uncomfortable, and I've been wanting to get one, so I got myself one. I am rectifying and working through the institutions and the constructs that I have agreed to. Marriage is one of them. And so I would love to know what you think, how you feel, and where you feel like you're not fully expressed. Because that really is why I'm doing these lives and I do this work in the world, and I'm really committed to this. So thank you for listening. I am not going to end my marriage. I have a phenomenal husband. He is really, really great. And there's always the next place that we get to grow into. I'm all about growing in my consciousness and being more aware and awake and taking the stuff that's in the background and bringing it to the foreground and being like, oh my gosh, do I agree to that? Like, is that what I stand for? So thank you for listening. I will see you every Wednesday. I may increase my lives. I don't know. I may do more, like 2 times a week. I'm not sure. But thank you for listening. And if there's anyone in your life, any woman in your life that you think would benefit from being in a community where she can express and feel anything that she needs to in a conscious way, in a way that we're moving this conversation forward, then please share this with her. Share this group with her. And I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.